Good evening and welcome to this week's episode of Sunday Night Live, your favorite automotive show where we bring on the experts to share with you what they do to improve the customer experience at their stores or how they help others to improve the customer experience, because that's what keeps customers coming back. And I have my friend John Frazier with us today. John, welcome to the show, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Paul.
Now, before we get started, I just want to say thank you for the loyal fans that have been watching either live or on the replay for the last 3 years, because on December 29th, celebrated 3 years of the show. So we have now entered our 4th year, and I couldn't think of a better way to kick it off than with you, man.
Yeah, man, thanks. I appreciate it.
So happy New Year to everybody. And for those 1 or 2 people that might not know, who's this John Frazier guy? Why don't you walk us through kind of how you got into the business, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, definitely. So I got into the business back in 2006. My dad was a technician at a dealership, had always been a technician, and I was selling vacuum cleaners door to door. And it lasted for a little while and had a whole lot of fun with that, but that dissolved very quickly. And so my dad, he told me about an opportunity at their store they had and said that if I could sell a vacuum cleaner, I could sell some service. And, I got into it and enjoyed it right out of the gate, meeting people and being able to fix their problems. And moving on 6-7 years later, got into service and parts management at a Hyundai store there. Made a switch over to CDJR in 2013 and 14, and did fixed operations over a Hyundai store and a Dodge store there in Louisiana. And now I'm in Georgia at Paulden Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram, and been here going on my 3rd year. And that's kind of how I got into it. So started in sales and still in sales in some way, shape, or form, but certainly that's how the rest is history at this point.
Everybody's in sales. If you're in business, you're in sales.
Right? Yeah, no doubt.
No matter what it is. So I want to get to a couple of comments here. We open it up with Jerry Davis, one of the best out there in John Frazier. Here. And Craig Tomasic, Happy New Year, everyone. And Michael Weldon, Happy New Year all. Jerry Davis says, John Frazier, the man, the myth, the legend.
I don't know, Jerry.
And Mark Williamson, hello, or Happy New Year, everyone. And my Dale Carnegie coach, Michael Franker. Nice to see you, man. Congrats, Paul, for 3-year anniversary. And LinkedIn user, I bet you that's Lamont, says, love John Frazier pushing back on what others aren't doing and making it happen. And other SDL buddy, Eric Howiggy, Paul Meijer and John Frazier, what a show. Happy New Year to everyone. Happy New Year to you. And LinkedIn user says, Happy New Year, Paul, John, and everyone else. John Davis, Paul, one of these days, I want the honor to be on your show. But you know what? Tomorrow, we're going to have that conversation, Jerry. Greg Dudley, hey, made it to a show. Happy New Year. All right, so 2022 was a good year. It was a good year for me. Having followed a lot of the stuff you put out there, I think it's been a pretty good year for you as well.
Yeah, most definitely. Yeah, we had a great year. Through the pandemic, we struggled with traffic and among many other things. And this area of the world seemed to be not as disturbed as, when I came from Texas, we were having stay-at-home orders, and there were days where business didn't even exist on the drive, but we kept trucking along here. And this year was difficult as we still saw shorthandedness from people being out with COVID and trying to take on the traffic at our store that other dealers in the area just wasn't able to handle and to manage. But we made it through. We saw a great increase in CSI, a good increase in retention. Our 1st year retention is up, and we, even as big of a bang, we had a 350% net profit increase last year over 2020. We were still able to pull off a 10% increase this year, and had a huge increase in our CSI as well.
A couple of comments here. Let's see. Oh, you know what? LinkedIn, Mike Vogel's coming across as LinkedIn user today. No, I did not silence you, man. LinkedIn does have some issues with this live thing. Every once in a while, stuff goes awry and nobody really has an answer for it. So it was not Lamont. It's actually Mike Vogel coming through as LinkedIn user. Russell B. Hill. Well, good evening, Paul and John. Happy New Year. And our favorite guy from Sugar Land, Texas, Kenneth Dunner. Savor the flavor of the awesomeness in you peeps for sharing your delectably, scrumptiously, delicious, edibly tasty, good, heartfelt thoughts with us today. Happy New Year. Kenny, don't forget, the last week of the month is NADA in Dallas. So if you're around Dallas, we can meet up for some barbecue. Let's see, MV here. John reminds me of myself 20 plus years ago. Very cool to watch him grow every year with the strong arm emoji. So 2023 is here. And, there's different schools of thoughts on when do you win the game? Do you win it in the first quarter? Do you win it in the last quarter? I'm a believer that you need to be firing on all cylinders right out of the gate and just keep running and never looking back. So there are some things that are important as far as planning is concerned, and that's what we're kicking the show off today. Planning your 2023 for fixed ops success. And, we start with the basics, right?
Yeah.
It's always been about the customer experience and what are those elements that help you to achieve that. And you put a post out the other day, and when I saw that post, I'm like, damn, this is exactly what I want to talk about. And here we are. And you have a checklist here. There were some 11 things on that checklist that you went through. And I want to kind of cover those and then add in and certainly take questions while we're doing that. So the first thing you did was redesign your menu. Yeah. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, so my menu has held many forms and shapes and looks over the years. I actually created this menu back in 2009 when I was a service advisor at a Hyundai store. We had nothing tangible to give the customer. There was nothing, I had nothing to show the customer. And it was frustrating because I was having to remember everything, and I just wanted them to be able to see something. So I put together a good, better, and a best menu for each interval of their car's life. And through the years, I've changed the looks of it. And I remember a Hyundai rep that came by my store at that time, and he inspired this menu that I'm putting out for 23. And he looked at my menu. He said it looked great. And he's like, man, why don't you just give people two options? Forget the third option. Show them what the manufacturer recommends, and then show them what you recommend as sort of a cherry on top. So that being said, that has been in my mind for the past 12 years. And now it's turned into a basic and a best option with some a la carte options. Most so, not only for the customer to be able to see something and to know what their car needs at those intervals, but for our advisors to have something in place that is programmed to the penny so that they can confidently show the customer and know that when they get the ticket back out of the shop, everything's going to match up with what they showed the customer on the drive.
Now, a key point here that I want to make note of, because it kind of reminds me of myself back in the day. You didn't have something, so you created it, right? Yeah. How often do we wait? We're waiting for the perfect tool. We're waiting for the perfect this, the perfect that. We're waiting to have kids. We're waiting to get married. We're waiting to buy a house. We're waiting for everything. But you didn't have it, and you made it. And I'm kicking myself in the butt here because I believe it was 1986. I was writing service at a Mercedes-Benz store. It was a Mercedes-Benz and a Saab store. Wow. And at that time, it was my first dealer job. I had always been in the aftermarket.
Right.
And I figured, okay, a lot of these cars were coming in. Each model needed a certain amount of work. So a 300 SD usually needed XYZ. 380 SL usually needed other work. So in Excel, like you created, I put together what essentially was an MPI per model with the little squares. And I stapled, when all my customers would come in looking for me, and I would staple that form, my early MPI, to the RO. The techs loved it because they wouldn't forget what to look for, right?
Right.
The customers loved it because it was uniform, it was consistent, and it offered them a better quality service so that they wouldn't have to come back for stuff that was missed. And I advised them along the way, very, very much the way you do. With now that, I guess when it started, everybody's thought process was give them 3 choices and they're going to pick one, usually the one in the middle.
Right, exactly.
But now you've morphed that to give them 2 choices, what the OEM wants or recommends and what you recommend, and why, the education piece of it.
Yeah, exactly. And I've been watching the good, better, and best menu here for the past 2.5 years, and going back and running the reports and looking at the numbers, I actually found that more people landed on the best option than the good or the better. So cutting it down and taking the middle one out, I think is going to simplify things. And 2, I want to talk about the sales pitch side of it. You know, it's a very simple pitch. It's hey, Paul, at this mileage, we recommend these 2 services. This service here is what the manufacturer says your car needs. This service, the best service, it's a little icing on the cake. This is what we see your vehicle needs in these conditions to stay in tip-top shape. And the way that I train the team here, like when I got into the business, you were graded very heavily how you could sell out on the service drive. Man, if you didn't walk back in and you didn't sell a timing belt and a 60K and a tune-up, you weren't shit. Like,
don't forget the flush.
Yeah, right. Yeah, you gotta do the wallet flush, you know. And so as the cars have changed and they become less maintenance needy, you know, you can't change the fluids. You don't have to change the fluid every 30,000. There's timing chains, not timing belts, and all these things. And as our customers have become more educated, they're coming in through the door already kind of knowing what they need. You know, the OEE and our maintenance menus and some of our software puts that out in front of the customers when they schedule their service. So when we present now, customers need to be sold, but they don't want to be sold. And that guy that's walking out or that gal that's walking out with their iPad, customers already come through the door with a wall up and they think, oh, they're going to sell me everything and plus the kitchen sink. So the way that we approach it is we just plant the seed out here on the service drive. Our technicians validate it and they back up what the advisor said by way of the multi-point inspection. We do that with My Karma by using a digital multi-point, and the advisors will, in many cases, if a major interval service was needed, they'll just upload that to the multi-point. So when the customer gets that in their palm of their hand on their phone, they're like, oh yeah, that's what he was talking about out on the service drive. I get it now. Yeah.
Reinforcement.
Yeah, exactly. And I want to say, I saw Mike put over here, you had said something about, do we win in the first quarter? Do we, you know, how do we do this? And the thought process that always comes to mind, Mike said, you win the game every day, every week, every month. Tweak your current operation while planning your next move. And that's exactly it. For me, that speaks a lot in my operation. I'm always looking, what is the next move? For me, playing music, I know, Jerry, you just said that we need to get the sax live on live. When I'm reading a piece of music, I'm always looking a few steps ahead. I look at what I've done here and I'm looking ahead so that I can read it efficiently. And that's the same with this business. You've got to know where you're going and you've got to look ahead of it so that you can get there effectively. Vince Lombardi said that winning isn't everything, it's the only thing, you know? So
kind of like playing chess. You know, you have to be in the moment of what you're doing, but you also need to know or anticipate the next moves because they happen and you need to be able to adjust with that.
Yeah.
Jerry Davis says, John Frazier has great CSI and I would love to know the secret sauce. Is there a secret sauce, or is it just treating people the way they want to be treated?
Depending on the OEM, there is a bit of a secret sauce when it comes to CDJR. A lot of it is making sure that the advisor has the survey on their mind at the moment of first contact. They've got to think about that survey through every part of it. And then you got to tell the customer about it at different stages. For here, when they do the active delivery, they're telling the customer, hey, you're going to get a survey in a couple of days. My advisors follow up with their customers the next day after service so we can get ahead of any CSI nightmares. CDJR stores have the ability to see a list of customers that actually have their survey in their email, just waiting to be done. That's another follow-up that my advisors do daily. So following that process every single day, that's how we're able to do that. We pulled 165 surveys last month. The other dealers in my area pull 60, 70 surveys at best.
Wow, that's nice.
But it's just making sure you stay there in front of the customer, but you've got to offer survey-worthy service. Our society is inundated with surveys. You can't go to a restaurant or you can't go to the hardware store without being asked to do a survey. So giving a customer an experience that's memorable, that's survey worthy. I mean, it means a lot for a customer to take their time to go find that manufacturer survey and actually do it. So yeah, it's a little bit of a secret sauce,
Now I want to kind of expand on that a little bit. The common denominator in everything is the customer, the experience, and the follow-up, right? When a customer leaves your shop, before they put the key in the ignition, what their state of mind is based on the experience that they've had. And now your OEM allows for talking about the survey, but there are also other OEMs that don't. They specifically, in their survey, they ask you, were you told about the survey? And if you answer yes on that one, for some manufacturers, that would be a failing grade for them. But the bottom line is you offer that experience that makes it memorable, and you follow up so that you can catch anything that might have slipped through the net. I want to get to a couple of comments. Ken Dunner says, Paul Meijer, are you paying for some delectable, scrumptious, deliciously, edibly tasty, good Texas barbecue? Well, I don't know if I'm paying for it, but I'm definitely going to be enjoying it. And let's see. I don't know that we have time for live saxophone, but I leave that totally up to you. And Jerry says it's simple and saves confusion to some of your pointers. Says John built it, and it says who don't want the best protection for their investment? When you educate them, right? Speaking of education, you have a guy that's recently started with you.
Yeah. We're going to have him on the show next month.
It seems to be a master educator.
Yeah, we have. So I'm really working hard to make our customer experience more relational than transactional, and that may mean that some of my current customer-facing staff may not be able to achieve that. We're constantly training and constantly pushing that mindset, but as a means to sort of break the mold and to put a different thought process in place. Back in October, I put an ad out for service advisor, entry-level apprentice, if you will, and just stuck a salary to it, $50,000 a year, 5 days a week, plus bonuses. I just didn't want there to be, because I believe sometimes our pay plans can be counterproductive to the customer experience. I just didn't want that to be the issue. We did group interviews, which if you've not done group interviews, first off, when you put an ad like that out there, everybody and their brother is going to apply. I'm telling you, you're going to get a massive response. And the resume and the application will tell you somewhat about people, but I give everybody I can a shot. And I'll set up a few days through the week in the afternoon. Hey, we're going to have a group interview. You get all these people in a room. and you really get to see how they interact with one another. From there, you schedule a one-on-one interview with the people that you liked. And this young man, Brandon, that came through, was working at a grocery store and knows nothing about cars, nothing about the car business, didn't know what a service department was. Admittedly, the other day, and he'd probably laugh if he heard me say this, he wasn't even sure how to hook up a jump box. So the guy is the epitome of green. And so what we did is I put him with a couple of senior advisors just for a couple of days. And so he spent some time with them. Then I let him spend one day with not so senior advisors. And then he spent 2 weeks with me. And I let him watch me do the process start to finish with the customer. And then I watched him do it. And then I sat back and watched him from a distance. And in the matter of 45 days, this guy is one of the best service advisors I've ever seen on the service drive. I mean, he offers the whole menu. He's out there offering menu options. He's out there telling customers, hey, while your car is here today, I have a detail service in the back. Let me get it detailed up for you. So not only can I get it fixed, but it's going to look as good as the day it did when you bought it. He notes on his walk around, he notes damage. And once he's done with the damage, noting that, and he does the write-up, he sends his write-up over to our body shop so that he can get an estimate for the customer for the body work to also put on their multi-point. Last but not least, before the customer leaves, he asks every customer, have you thought about trading your vehicle in today? Do you want an appraisal? You never know what you can get for it. Have you thought about getting a new model? And so he also will, in many cases, have a salesman follow up with the customer. I mean, the guy benefits every department of our store like nothing I've ever seen. And what's not on his mind? He's not worried about his pay. He's not worried about what the person to the left or to the right is doing and what ticket they wrote up. He doesn't judge a book by its cover. He just offers everything every single time. It absolutely blows my mind.
100%, 100%, 100%, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I want to get to a couple of comments and then build on that. Let's see here. Mike Vogel, it's important, in my opinion, that you don't have fluff in your maintenance packages.
Yeah.
I hate fluff. If
I'm guilty. I'm guilty. And that also motivated the change. I had a lot of fluff. I will not lie. I had wipers and air filters and cabin filters and things that fluffed the menu a little bit, but the customer may not necessarily need at those intervals. So Mike, I took all that stuff out, buddy.
But you covered that in the walk around for their benefit.
Right.
Jerry Davis, educational selling. That is 100%. Because if you educate them, they're going to make the best decision for them, not for you. And Mike Vogel says maintenance packages need to be less expensive than all items purchased a la carte, aka value.
Yeah, exactly.
And Kenneth Dunner, John Frazier, I love the saxophone behind you. Jerry Davis, his CSI for CDJR is the highest in the country. Is that so?
Maybe up there. I don't know about the highest. I mean, depends on what size stores. We're up there.
Huh? Roger Pfeiffer, this is a new name on the show. Welcome. And do you wait to the active delivery or start it at the time of write-up?
Are you talking about the survey?
I'm not sure. Roger, if you can just clarify that a little bit. And let's see, LinkedIn user, I'm not sure if that's Lamont or if that's Mike Vogel. It says, Jerry Davis, focus on creating more customer advocates. If you want growth and long-term relationships, CSI will not get it done. That's a great point there, because if you become their advisor that they trust for everything, they will come to you for everything when they need it.
Roger said yes down at the bottom here. So when we talk about the survey, we do wait until the active delivery. we don't come right out of the gate with it. I know there's some schools of thought out there. Chris Collins teaches in his book, The Millionaire Service Advisor, that, the advisor should start off with, hey, you're going to get a survey in a couple of days, and I'm going to make sure this experience is going to be in such a way that you're going to give me top-notch scores on the survey. I guess you could do it either way. My guys here do it at the end.
And again, depends on the OEM, right? Whether or not you're able to do that. Jerry Davis says, Mike, I agree 100%. Steve Chesson, my buddy from California, why do OEMs recommend oil changes annually / 10,000 miles when we know that's BS? I'm tempted to give a poor CSI to the factory for suggesting I compromise my car's durability.
Yeah.
Craig Tomasic, Steve Chesson, for overall cost of ownership, the lower the cost, the better for the brand and more appealing to the customer, regardless if it's a true correct interval or not. Now, we could argue the point about, driving in dusty areas. We can argue the point of heavy duty usage, stop and go, as opposed to mostly highway. Different schools of thoughts on that. And I don't think anybody is going to convince the other side that their way is better. Maybe, there's no one right answer to everything, right? I guess it's what you're comfortable with. Robert Magliaccio, John Frazier, and Paul, who could ask for more for today to start the year? SDL and SNL. Yeah. Wow, thank you. I must apologize to Joe and Eric. I was not able to make this morning's show. I spent literally 2 full days cooking, and then today, probably most of the day cleaning up from all of the cooking that I did. I did a special Indonesian, something called the Restafel, which is many different dishes. And I have to say, each one came out on point. People were coming back for seconds and thirds, and we have all this leftover stuff. So, well, thank you for the compliment. I very much appreciate that. Jerry Davis, group interviews are great. And that's a great point you had, because what I love about a group interview is you're seeing people that you don't know, and you're seeing how they're adapting in real time to the other people that are part of that conversation. Now, tell me that's not an everyday occurrence at the dealership.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they're going to be dealing with strange people every single day. So you want to see how they interact. I think what's important for me in that interview, it's a very informal interview, first of all, in the group setting. It's questions like, what was your least favorite job? What was your least favorite boss and why? Who was your favorite? What did you like to do the most? It's getting things out like that. And many times there's a lot of humor behind it, and there's a lot of cutting up. So you really get to see people's personality. But I think the most important question you can ask, especially for an advisor that's going to be customer facing, is tell me about an instance or an experience where you were the customer and somebody, whoever was serving you, be it a waitress or somebody at Walmart or Home Depot, somebody did something for you and you thought for a moment, man, that was really nice. It was just an exceptional customer experience. You can really read a lot about people, the way that they answer that. And I've actually had people not be able to answer it. The reason that's important for me is because if a potential service advisor that you're looking to hire has never in their life recognized a moment where they received good customer service, I don't believe they can give it.
Yeah.
So it's really, really huge for me.
That's 100%. And when they struggle, it tells you a lot about them. And the other thing that I also like is that, we all seem to be looking for that perfect advisor, that perfect technician. You figure you put the ad out there, and what's going to walk through the door is an advisor with 10 years of experience, no bad habits, and is ready to go, punctual and bushy-eyed Monday morning. And that doesn't happen. And when you look for people, this person that's a rock star, grocery store,
Yeah.
management.
Yeah. Yeah.
He knows people. He may not know automotive, but who cares?
Yeah.
Because he knows people. And
Right.
that's the skill.
That's what this is. It's a people business. From there, it's just, we've always heard it's either the skill or the will. And it's great if you can find both, if you can have the skill and the will. But for me, it's all more about the will than the skill. Because I can teach anybody how to write a ticket. I can teach them the software. I can teach them the iPad. But I can't teach them people skills. And I can't teach them to have the will to get out of the chair, to go greet people, to make the conscious choice. I mean, most reasons why advisors fail is they don't make the choice to just do what they've been told to do, to show the menu, to ask if the customer wants an appraisal, to send the pictures over to the body shop. They choose not to do those things.
Now, some of it's shortcutting, and others is prejudging, right? Oh, they're not going to buy this, they're not going to buy that. But if you rephrase the whole thing into an education session, I mean, as a customer, I would appreciate that. And
if they don't buy it this time, they might buy it next time.
Yeah.
Next. Yeah.
And that conversation starts at moment one, right? Sell the dream.
Exactly.
Over 60,000 miles or 40,000 miles of coming in. Hey, your tires are great. This is what the depth is now. This is what they are when they're new. This is how long it takes to stop when they're new. And based on the tread wear on your tires, this is how much longer it's going to take to stop. It's still well within specifications, but you just need to know what that is. And we'll keep an eye each time you come in to remind you of that. So by the time the fifth or sixth time you've had that conversation and they need the tires, it's not how much, it's how long.
Yeah, exactly.
And stop.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Jerry Davis is building customers for life. And Greg Dudley, service exchange opportunity is the number one opportunity in the service drive.
Mm-hmm.
I agree, man.
Yeah.
In service, in my opinion, is where you have the opportunity to build the absolute best long-term relationship with a customer, because they're coming in, not at their happiest time, right? I don't know too many people that, woohoo, I got to go spend money on servicing my car today.
Yeah.
Right? Now, the way your guy educates them about, hey, we could have this look, not only spinning like a top, but looking like when it drove off the lot.
Yeah.
Tell me that's not added value, man.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, that's it. It just adds value to the whole store, to the whole experience. And I often will ask my service advisors, just to keep it at the forefront of their mind, if another company came in and constructed a mirror image of our store right across the street, you could get all the same services, the same cars, the same colors, the same price, everything. What would be the reason the customer would come see us versus them? And the finger's always pointed at them. It's about the experience. It's why we pay for certain experiences when we go out to dine or when we go shopping or what have you. It's all about the experience, the price. And that's the other thing too, touching back on the service menu that, I want to encourage people about, and I hear it a lot from other service managers or advisors that ask me about the menu and my pricing. And when I compare, they have this school of thought, well, we've got to be the cheapest in town. We have to, if we charge that, we're going to lose business. And my thought is, if you're concerned about the price of your service and you think the price of your services are going to run business off, then there's most likely a problem with the level of service you're giving. Because with the right level of service, price is a second thought for customers. They will pay for it. And I don't want to be the most expensive in town, but I'm going to be up there. And I want to have prices that are in line with the level of service that I offer. People
will pay for better service gladly all day long. Here, as a matter of fact, I'm going to play this clip here, and this illustrates it perfectly.
Okay.
There's nothing in automotive that doesn't take a long time at all.
That's actually not true. I just had an experience where I was at a quick lube oil change, and it only took me 15 minutes. I didn't even have to get out of my car. So I spent a little extra money for the convenience factor, and I would do it time and time again.
She spent extra money. She knew she spent extra money, and she would do it time and time again.
Yeah.
You just need to be in the ballpark. You just need to be in the game. You don't need to be the cheapest. And now let's talk about you updated things like labor times, pricing, and parts pricing.
Right. Yeah, I think when building a menu, you've got to get parts department involved. So the way I start, in fact, before I even came to this store and I was still in Texas, I sent off an email to the parts manager with a list of things that we needed to start on to build our first menu. And it's very important that parts department buys into your menu and buys into your process, because
everybody, by the way, everybody needs to buy in.
Yeah, no doubt. But from a pricing standpoint, I get my parts manager lists everything out, and we try to, for us, a brand that has such a wide car line, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram. We're not a Fiat store, but we do see some Fiats come in for maintenance. When you're pricing out maintenance for a car line like that, it's pretty difficult. For me, one of the most difficult was differential services, because I went back to 2014 and it was a long, dark, deep, lonely journey down these 306 different axles, possibilities of fluid types and weights and quantities in pints or in quarts. And it was a nightmare, but it's worth it because we needed to come to a price to where we win a little bit on most of them, and some of them we win a little more, and some we don't win so much, but we have a flat price that allows the advisors to be able to present it easily each time, not having to know, okay, this is a 2014 Jeep Grand Cherokee 4x4, or here's a 2018 Ram 2500 that's a two-wheel drive. How do we deal with those things? So you've got to be very studious in making sure you're flat pricing it and making sure that it's not only a win for the store, but a win for the customer. We don't want to worst case scenario everything. And, the person that rolls up in a car that takes a, $65 air filter, we don't want to tell them, well, it's $135 because we priced the worst case air filter. So You've got to be mindful about it and be sure that you're being detailed and setting it up from a pricing standpoint. One of the things I considered about this menu and changing it was the different drivetrains that we have. On our gas engines, we've got front wheel drive, rear wheel drive, four wheel drive, and we also have 6-speed transmissions, which do require service, but then we have 8 and 9-speed transmissions that do not require service. So being sure that I guide the advisors on their menu so that they can pitch it very quickly to the customer and not have to know, okay, what transmission do you have? That's very important. Same goes for our diesel, rear wheel drive, four wheel drive. There's 3 different types of transmissions to consider, so in structuring the menu, you've got to make sure that you've got your pricing from parts department correct, and the advisors, for them to see ultimately what is a win for the customer, what works for everybody. And it can be very difficult to do depending on the OEM.
Now, what's a win for the customer right out of the gate is time.
Yeah, exactly.
If you're able to quote a job after looking at, I don't know how many ROs you looked at to be able to determine that, to make sure that nobody gets hurt, but that's an investment in time. You said about 40 hours in total to put something like that together?
Yeah, from start to finish, to build it, to make all the reference sheets, to do the competitive shopping, to building the menu, programming it in our tablet system, programming it in the DMS, making sure that it appears correctly on the online scheduler. It's a good 40 hours of just straight computer time.
And that's what, once a year or biannually?
We look at it once a year, because one of the things you have to consider is the appreciation or depreciation that parts may experience from the manufacturer. Last year, first quarter of 22, just that quarter alone, we experienced a $40,000 appreciation in that time. And we've got a pretty large inventory. So much of it was on fluids, much of it was on filters, things that are on our menu. So I tweak it a little bit throughout the year, and I may have to make a little changes, but a major revamp or a major review happens every year to just make sure that we're in line and that we're not sacrificing profit on the back end, as well as we're not confusing the advisors and misquoting customers on the front side.
I guess that's a similar strategy than a lot of stores do for inventory. One big inventory and then perpetual inventories along the way with the scanner.
Right.
Want to get to a couple of comments here. Let's see. Steve Chesson, but they know skimping on proper care will ruin their reputation for when their engines fail far too soon. Hear, hear. At a Mercedes store that I was at, this one guy told the customer, this car is perfect. It needs no service. Well, the customer ended up blowing the engine, and they ended up eating the engine because of that comment.
Wow.
Jerry Davis, consistency is the presentation is key. Paying attention is key. Look at the history and make sure your MPI doesn't allow brake pads to grow. That is, yeah, I mean, that's very well said. And that's what your new guy's doing.
Yeah.
Consistently. Exactly. Not prejudging, presenting everything each time and making suggestions as an advisor. Imagine that, an advisor advising.
Yeah, imagine.
Without prejudging. And Jerry Davis says, no, that's not true. Being the cheapest in town is not always the win. That is true. Michael Weldon, on point conversation. Thank you, my friend. Kenneth Dunner says, customer service for life is so important. I bought my first Camry in 1987. My current Camry is a 2000. I still get service from the same Toyota dealership. After all these years, they should give me a free Camry for my next purchase. But he's on point here. Yeah. He bought the car 23 years ago, and he's still servicing the car at the dealer. You think they're doing the right thing by Mr. Dunner here? I think so. Definitely. Jerry Davis, transparency is key to building value. And Mike Vogel, my maintenance menu pricing was the same on the drive, on our website, and on direct mail pricing. The customer gets one price regardless of where they see it or hear it. Competitive, but not the cheapest. You know, it's consistency across the different platforms is key, not just in the service end of things, but also in the sales end of things. And so many times when I shop stores on the variable side of things, I see that the pricing is not consistent. They're not using a syndication tool to make sure that the price on the website is the same as the price on their third-party sites that they spend good money every month on. But that's key because there's nothing, you know, the customer, they're apprehensive to begin with. All right. Yeah. And it seems as though they're just looking for us to make a mistake. And the minute they see that mistake, i.e., you told me this much, but on your website, it's that much. Yeah. Or you sent me a direct mail piece or an email that's a totally different price altogether. That's the moment where you fail.
Yeah, no doubt.
Appointments. Review your appointment ledger. Now, appointments are interesting, right? Because there are stores that have a fully functioning online appointment tool, and there are stores that have an online lead generator for appointments.
Yeah, and we use a scheduler. Being a CDJR store, a Stellantis dealership, we're privy to a tool called Y-Advisor, which is administered by a CRM called DealerFX, which is a popular tool among Lexus and Toyota and GM stores, Nissan stores. Y-Advisor is Stellantis's label, but the online scheduler is the same. It's tied to the write-up tool on the drive. So it saves some time for my advisors that when the customer has gone online to schedule their appointment, or we've scheduled their appointment over the phone, we do it all through that appointment ledger, which also has all those services programmed. So if the customer sees it online or they hear it over the phone, what they're hearing there is going to be the same as what they're going to hear on the service drive. And if the appointment is set in that system, it saves the advisor a lot of time on the drive because all of those notes are already in place. At this point, it's just greeting the customer, confirming their information, recapping their services, and getting a signature. So yeah, I can't believe we're 2023 and there's still stores out there with a online form on their website for service. Yeah.
That is the customer. You now have to interact with the customer to confirm that appointment's even available.
Right.
And I think that, less is more. The less things that you have to worry about, the more you're going to get out of the experience. And, the appointment is one thing, and then there's the reminders, right? Mm-hmm. I don't think there's anybody on the planet that does better reminders than the dental office.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we follow up with text and email reminders. The customer gets a confirmation after they schedule it, and then we follow up with text and email through our Customer Connect program with Y-Advisor. So, and then if they, for whatever reason, miss the appointment, it's part of my advisor's job each day. If the appointment was missed, somebody catches it and reaches out to that customer.
What's the time lag on that?
We let it go an hour. After an hour, it'll click over as missed on the ledger.
Okay.
And then these guys, they have the ledger pulled up every day on their tablet and on their PC. So somebody just jumps in and grabs it.
Now that's key because there are stores that you do both text and email. I don't know what the current latest number is, but I'd venture to say most every text that somebody receives is going to be read. I think that's just a cold, hard fact, right? There are still stores today that send one email reminder, period. And if that goes into spam, you've just lost the value of that reminder. And then an hour later gives them the grace period to be able to, oh man, but then when they get the call, maybe life happened along the way. Maybe you can reschedule at that point, or maybe you can still get them in that day while it's fresh on the mind, as opposed to some stores, end of the day.
Right.
What have I gained? I'm not speaking with anybody. I got an email at closing time, and now they have to rely on me calling them back. That's just not going to work.
Yeah.
Reference sheets for parts and technicians. Talk to me about that.
So in efforts to get everybody on the same page with your menu, there's a number of reference sheets that I use. The advisors have it at their fingertips on their tablet. We have a universal network drive that everybody can see. They have it there. While I have everything pre-programmed in the DMS, I believe it's important for everybody to just have the information right at their fingertips to know what's the op code, how much flag time is it, how much of the price is labor, how much of the price is parts. For the technicians, I've got a mix of old and new in the shop, and these guys just like to have something tangible in their hand, and they like to see, okay, so a 30,000 mile service is going to pay me this many hours. So they have their own reference sheets that is the same as the advisors without the pricing. They just know how much flag time they need to write on their ticket. My advisors book all their repair orders. So the technician will write his times on there, bring it to the advisor. So it's important for them to know what they're going to get paid right out of the gate. Many of my guys, they keep a ledger in like an old route sheet book. They keep a ledger of their time for ROs. And then for the parts department, we have 4 parts counter people that work the back counter. It's all about information. And for them, me and the parts manager negotiated and agreed on these prices. For them, it's important that they know, hey, here's what this interval package is going to get if it's a basic or if it's a best. And here's how much each of those parts need to be billed for. And also, here's how much the oil needs to be billed for, depending on the oil type. We have 7, 8 different oil types, 020, 040, 520, 530, 1030, 030, 540. So it's a lot to keep up with. And I believe the success of our advisors pushing this and being able to book their ROs efficiently is key for everybody to know, what is it supposed to be billed at. I can't pre-program parts to these different operations just because of the different variables. So it's just key for it to have information. Everybody is informed when it comes to a process at my store.
By having all of these systems in place, everybody's educated each step of the way, right? The consumer is educated through reminders, through the proper process, and then through validation when they receive their ultimate quote, right, as to what the car needs and how much it's going to be. And each step along the way, the techs know what's about to unfold here. I want to get to a couple of comments here. Jerry Davis, your prices are set for the long game, 100%. And he says, it's our job to break down the walls and overcome objectives with a true experience that is customer focused. Bam. Every time. And he says, sorry to keep blowing up the chat, guys. I'm very passionate about this business. And I get so excited about guys like Paul and John that are trying to better our business. Thank you so much, Jerry. We're very passionate about it also, or we would not be in it for as long as we've been in it. It's the greatest business out there.
It is.
And Greg Dudley says, Jerry Davis, service is sales and sales is service. Bottom line is the people call for help. Still, years later, I gave out my cell phone right out of the gate years ago, and people that I sold cars to, oh God, in the late 90s, still call me today when they have car questions.
Yeah.
I get a random call out of the blue sometimes, but I told them, I said, hey, that's what you need to do. And you stay with them, right? I would tell people, hey, listen, you've put your trust in me. You purchased a vehicle from me. If I can ever help you in any way, shape, or form, call me. Here's my cell phone. Even if I'm not at the store, call me, right? Yeah. So I had somebody come from California to Westport, Connecticut to buy an RX 330 at the time. And her mom lives in Connecticut. I think her mom might have taken over the car, later on. But what happened was the little leather pocket that the key fob went into,
right?
The dog chewed it and damaged it. So she called the parts department and she wanted to buy the replacement. Well, guess what? They don't make it anymore.
Yeah.
So the parts guy said, I'm sorry, that part's no longer available. She calls me and she explained the story. I said, hey, you know what? Let me look into that. I'll call you back in a little bit. So I go online. I find it on eBay. New old stock, those two pouches. I don't remember what I paid for them. Maybe $20, something like that. It wasn't a lot of money. I bought them and I shipped it to her. It was only $20. I didn't charge her anything. She was blown away. But you're doing what you said you were going to do. And as it turns out, she would visit our other business and do business with us after the fact.
Yeah.
But my intent was just to work with her and to take care of her. Kenneth Dunner says, John Frazier, play the beautiful saxophone for us tonight. And Jerry Davis says, I had one of my customers call me from my first store as a manager the other day. It meant the world to me. They valued my opinion still.
It's important in service, that what the saying goes, service sells the next car, and that we build retention and not one hit wonders. We have to make sure that there's a second visit and a third visit. And that's what's driving this change in our menu. That's what's driving our retention, or attention to retention with intention. this year, because you have to be intentional about customer retention. It's not something that just happens by accident, and many people would probably look at my numbers and look at my financial statement and look at my menu and probably think, man, you got to be struggling somewhere in CSI. And I'll make a post later about our yearly CSI, but I just pulled it up. So we ended at a 942 for the year, 83.4 with our advocacy score, 95% almost with our fixed first visit. And that's across 1,438 surveys, which our survey return rate, or our response rate, is nearly double that of the national average. We're 23, 24% response rate. National average is 10, 11% on average on a good day. So we've got to think about making customers for life, or like Chris Collins puts it, collecting customers. And that's the school of thought I'm trying to get my advisors to think about, is we need to collect our customers, and we need to make our customers, like Mike Vogel says, we need to turn them into advocates. I'll never forget, you were talking about your customer, about the key fob. I'll never forget the first time as an advisor, I had a customer tell me they trusted me. And I remember this like it was yesterday. The guy's name was Scott. He worked for a local electric company. He had 3 Hyundais. He drove a black Hyundai Tucson. His wife drove a red Hyundai Entourage. His daughter drove a blue Hyundai Elantra. And they were some of my first customers when I started there at the Hyundai store. And in collecting customers and making sure he would come back to me, I made sure to tell him, hey, here's what your car's due for. Here's what you're going to need on the next visit. Let me go on and schedule your next appointment for you so you come see me. And I remember the day he kept putting me off on this 60,000 mile service. And he came in. I walked out to the car, and I didn't even get around the driver's side of the car. He meets me at the corner of the car. He tosses me the keys, and he says, I know what you're about to say, John. You've been bugging me about it for the past 6 months. I'm here to get it done. I'm going in there to have a cup of coffee. Just do whatever the car needs. I trust you. And those words still ring true, or ring loudly to me today, that when you get a customer to say that they trust you, especially in this business, you're doing something right. You're sending the right message. You're sending, you're creating transparency. You're giving the right experience to the customer for them to trust you. And so this year, as we look at retention, which I believe, of course, we've always been preaching it, retention is going to be more important in 2023 for fixed ops than it's ever been. We've got to get real creative about some of the things that we're going to do. On my list of things to do, owner clinics. Let's get these people back in the store. Let's talk to them about their brand new car. Let's give them some food. Let's introduce them to the staff. Let's tell them what they need to expect as they come in. Let's have 30-day pit stops. Even when I go get my haircut, the place I get my haircut at tells me to come back inside of 30 days so I can get an edge up, but they really just want me to come back through the door so they can sell me some products. And you're
okay with that because they treat you well.
Yeah, exactly. But I want my customers to come back after we do their service. Hey, let's set them an appointment for 30 days. Come back in. It's going to take 15 or 20 minutes. I just want to pop the hood, look at your tires, look at your fluids, make sure everything's good, and just make sure that you're good until you're due for your next service. So we've got a list of things that we're going to be rolling out this year so that we can be intentional about retention. And that's really the motivation behind this newly designed menu, and finding some advisors that thinking outside the box, that looking for advisors that don't have experience, that don't have bad habits, that are just going to come in and treat my customers the way I need them treated.
No, that is key. I got a couple of comments I want to get in here. Let's see here. Greg Dudley, intention is retention. I'm stealing that one. Jerry Davis says that is huge as a CDJR store. He says our advisors are building business in our business. They need to become their own brand advocates, 100%. And Matthew Senna, Great points, gentlemen. It's more than just sales. It's a relationship building business. People want to do business with those that they trust, whether it's their barber, plumber, accountant, or service advisor. 100%.
Yeah.
And Jerry Davis says, John, I still want a copy of that Excel sheet.
I got it coming to you, man.
So yeah, so some basic stuff here, right? We're not splitting atoms. These are things that deep down we really know, but maybe some of us haven't been doing it along the way. But now is the time, because there's been a big shift in our business, and retention is key, right? 7 in 10 don't come back.
Yeah.
And now after the pandemic, maybe we're still experiencing some of that. But during the last 2 years of, hey, this is the price, take it or leave it. We've got other buyers. Hit the bricks if you don't want it. And the sales department not following up with the customers, I have to think that may affect the service end of things to some degree in stores, some more than others, because of how people were treated. I know that people have switched dealerships in purchasing the cars, which also ties to where they're going to service those cars.
Yeah.
So the points that you brought up are just spot on point. Kenneth Donner says, end of the show with a live saxophone performance. Can you play one song, John, or is that putting you on the spot?
Why not, Ken?
Well done, John. Well done, man. Even my wife is clapping from the other room. She knows every time she hears the music coming from the other room, it's saxophone, she knows it's you, and she comes over and she listens to it. And sometimes she gets a tear in her eye, man, because you play some beautiful music.
Thanks.
Wow. Well, that brings us to the end of yet another show. Thank you. You have the distinction of being the only one to have played a musical instrument on my show. And we got a few comments here. Greg Dudley, saxophone emoji. Mark Williamson, great show, guys. Awesome info. Thanks for sharing. Thank you. Kenneth Donner, John Frazier, I enjoyed being connected with like-minded people such as yourself. Why aren't we connected yet? I don't know. Send them a connection request. So, John, don't go away after we log off here. To those that watch tonight, thank you very much. I appreciate the support. To those that watch on the replay, thank you. I appreciate it. And Matthew sent us his great show, gentlemen. Thank you. If you see value in what you saw tonight, share it with one of your peeps in automotive. Because if you help just one person, you've done a good thing for a lot of people.
Yeah.
So with that, again, Happy New Year. Have a safe and successful week. And let's kick some butt to get this year started. And we'll see you next week on Sunday Night Live. Don't go away, John.